Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. What Terrors Hell Holds. Written by Aranya P. Once, there was a small, peaceful, remote village down in a small, peaceful, remote valley. Its inhabitants wholly insignificant to passing eyes. Amongst those who lived there were the beloved group of old men. The old men and their everyday routine were well known to the villagers. Every morning, the old men would gather in the village's only coffee shop, always sitting in their unspoken designated area. They were the happiest-looking bunch of old men anyone could hope to see, and they would spend the majority of their days playing flips, drinking tea, reading the latest newspaper, and debating with each other about one thing or another. They were more than happy to share their stories with anyone who might be interested to sit down and have a cup of tea with them. They were delightful, and everyone was delighted to have them around, even as the years rolled by and there were fewer and fewer old men each year as the village grew and grew. They still continued their routine, smiling, drinking tea, reading newspapers, and playing flip. Sadly, their simple lives would not last forever, and something drastic managed to throw a wrench into the everyday routine. Namely, Judgment Day. Honest to God's demons crawled out of the ground in the middle of the town and declared that they were going to take everyone's souls down to hell. It was a slaughter. The once peaceful town was filled with the screams of men, women, and children alike, and the streets littered with bodies of the dead. Rivers of blood washed down their drains, so much that it clogged them up. And to make it worse, the arch-fiend that led the incursion let out laughs, sent chills down people's spines. And then there were the old men, jolly, delightful old men, marching down the bloody streets, clad in their ages-old dress uniforms, armed with well-kept service rifles that were almost as old as themselves. At first, the daemons were confused. Now Rubabel considered himself a gentle daemon. He would properly play and have fun with his prey before he tortured them and ripped them limb from limb. Normally, the humans were supposed to be running away from him, not towards him. This confused Rubabel greatly. As he stood there, dumbstruck, thunderclaps of gunfire shook him back to reality. The old men delivered well-practiced volleys with their rifles. Shaky, senile hands and cloudy eyes worked the bolts with muscle memory, delivering a continuous stream of lead downrange, smiting lesser demons with lead that ripped arms off of men before. Rubabel rallied his underlings then, having them charge at the old men. Fireballs and lightning bolts were thrown their way, raying hearts and burning flesh, crumbling aged bones, and ending lives. But the remaining old men did not stop their volleys, nor did they flinch as their lifelong friends died by their sides. By the time the last bullet had been fired from their rifles, there was only the arch-fiend Rubabel left. The terrible monster fell upon the brave, old men, rending flesh and bones alike with bloodlust. Yet the old men did not flee, and the screams that were their last were not shrieks of horror, but were war cries as they jabbed their bayonets into the seemingly unstoppable demon. They fought, they died, and the others watched, until there was only one man left, his bayonet broken, a piece of it stuck in Rubabel's stomach. Still, he stood defiant against the terrible creature who looked down at him, snorting hot air from hell itself. "Why are you not afraid, mortal? Are you not afraid of eternal damnation that I am bringing you?" Rubabel questioned this insolent mortal. It mattered little if the old man answered his question out of his own free will or not. Rubabel would have his answers. Gazing deep into the soul of the old man, Rubabel searched through his memories. He saw peaceful rolling plains and mountains. He saw smiling faces of family members, the usual worthless things these humans cherished so much. Then he looked deeper, further back into the past. He was on a great open field now, but they were not peaceful rolling plains of greenery. Instead it was dark, brown, and grey, lifeless, cold, and uncaring, with large gaping holes in the very earth that seemed to be permanently filled with a sickish mud. But there was more than that. Rubabel's eyes widened, and he let out a silent gasp as he saw the bigger picture. He saw the bodies of friends and enemies alike lay dead or dying in the very mud that he stomped through right now. Some were still drowning in their hole, too weak to pull themselves out. He did not understand what was going on. Why would anyone in their right mind walk through such a nightmarish field? It made him homesick for the comforting warmth of hell already. Rubabel wasn't given enough time to think of hell so much, however, as he heard an unfamiliar whistle that seemed to come from far away. The humans were shouting something, but he wasn't listening. His host had dropped into the mud. What had happened? Was he hurt? Did he die? It couldn't be. The demon knew that the man survived long enough to be held in his claws right now. The world around him exploded. Dirt, mud, and body parts were thrown high into the sky and rained down upon him and his friends. He felt a wet splat landing on his back, and he dared not look to see what it was. He just stayed still, held his helmet tight, and waited. He waited and waited for long minutes that felt like eternities. The world exploded until all was silent. He wanted home now. He wanted nothing more but to stop this, just to go back to hell, where it was nice and safe, where the world does not explode around him and rain pieces of his friends on him. But he couldn't. It was like watching a train wreck. He couldn't put himself away. His host stood up after an order, and they marched forward still along a seemingly endless dead, mutilated fields of bodies and mud, where the dying were mewling out weak cries for help, but he knew that they were far gone. It made the demon feel sick to his stomach. He wanted to whimper. And then the thunders, the horrible, horrible, crackling thunders, friends both close and far screamed in pain as invisible force tore at them, ripping them into bloody pieces and chunks. Rubabel was screaming then, screaming for his host to turn around, to run away from whatever was causing such a horrible death to everything around them. But Rubabel was just a passenger, and he could only watch helplessly as more and more friends fell in the mud. Then there was a loud, sharp whistle, and everyone ran. They ran as hard and as fast as their legs could carry them, bayonets pointed forward, and then he heard the war cries of the humans, as terrible as any of the hellish beasts he knew, if not more so. Through the crackling thunder, through the invisible force of death, they looked at death in the eyes, and charged. Rubabel gasped in air then, as he felt himself back to where he was, holding an old man in his large claws. His hold felt weaker now, as if the strength had been robbed from him. He looked at the man in his grip. The man looked back at him, and he found himself wanting. The last old man still held his rifle tightly gripped in his hands, his eyes burning with life and fire that he thought long extinguished. I have already survived hell, and its name is Verdun. End of story. Story number 2. The sad, sad tale of Floyd the Cosmic Horror, written by Scottson. He was the laughingstock of the galaxy. Floyd, a.k.a. the bringer of a million sorrows, the dead sun, the all pain. Once again, was suffering a round of mocking from his fellow stellar deities. Star-sized biomasses and gargantuan fleets of immortal machines alike rifed his little defeat. "Can't deal with a little scab," one scoffed. My, the great Floyd brought down to this," another guffawned. "You suck," screamed one of the more blunt abominations. Floyd said nothing, simply bearing the insults, knowing full well he deserved it. He was once the greatest of them all, building great palaces of pain and misery, crushing them with fire, poison, and ash when even the smallest seeds of hope began to spring forth. But when his attention was turned just for a moment, he noticed new things, and he knew their tears would sustain him forever. But they were stubborn. Nothing worked. Not earthquakes, not disease, not daily disembowelment, not even plunging an asteroid into his own flesh. It was remaining. It was spreading. It was malignant. Another round of laughs filled the silent roar of space. "No words left, Floyd?" one asked in a haughty tone. Floyd had been silent for millions of years, though to the great old ones it was merely a few passing moments. Though still listening, his thoughts were inward. How could he not kill them, cleanse them, obliterate them? Every attempt just made them stronger. He thought more, ignoring the stinging sensation of his own skin. They reminded him of himself. Actually, a lot like himself. They even had a name for him, even if he thought it was weird. Then it hit him. He loved them. "I think he's dead," one of the great, writhing masses observed after Floyd's refusal to speak. Floyd turned his thoughts outwards, speaking to every horror in the galaxy. "I am not dead, and my name is not Floyd. My name is Earth," Floyd said, while millions of lights began to spring from his flesh and surround him like a storm of fireflies. "And I would like you to meet my children." End of story. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Bob the Dragon, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Estrella the Dreamer, Tryagain95, Fudic Yol, Meridian 117, Alithia, Jordan Bucksbaum, Angry Marine, Albarden Gusta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.